Okay, now the next thing we need to do is remove the balance wheel and balance bridge. The balance bridge is what holds the top pivot for the balance wheel. The bottom pivot is the main plate of the watch itself, and this part here goes from the jewel at the top of the balance pivot over to here. That's the balance bridge. So it's held on by one screw, this little screw right here. We take that off, it should come off. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get out because you can see that one of the wheels here, that's what the gears in a watch are called, they're called wheels instead of gears, intrudes quite a bit over the balance wheel, so it's going to be tricky to get it out of there. This movement is very, very small, and that's one of the reasons why this intrudes so much over there. There's just not a lot of space. More modern movements tend to have a little more spacing that they can keep these separated from each other. So I may end up having to take off the bridge that holds the drivetrain wheels in order to get the balance wheel off, but we'll see once I take out the retaining screw. So let's go ahead and do that. Take out the screw here. Now these screws are very, very small. I'm using a screwdriver that is, I think this is a 1mm screwdriver. That's the width of the screwdriver head. And so you have to be very careful with these because they're very easy to damage if you don't use the right size screwdriver, or if you use too heavy a hand when you're trying to unscrew them, or when you're trying to tighten them back up when you reinstall it. And you also have to be careful once you take it out because they're very easy to lose. My hand's blocking the view of it now, but I'm unscrewing it now. Okay, I've got it unscrewed, and the screw is still in the hole. So in order to get it out of there, because it's so tiny, I'm going to have to use a pair of tweezers to pick it up and drop it into my parts tray. And you have to be very careful with this. If you squeeze too hard with the tweezers, you can actually make the screw fly out of the tweezer tips. And if that happens, you're probably never going to find it. I had this happen a few weeks ago when I was servicing a more modern movement. I was taking out a screw, and it pinged off the tips of the tweezers. I actually heard it bounce off the wall because I was using a different workstation at the time. It was close to the wall, and I searched everywhere. I searched the floor in that room on my hands and knees for 2 hours trying to find that screw, and I never did find that thing. And it was about the same size as the screw, about 1 millimeter or maybe 1.5 millimeters across. If you lose a screw on an old movement like this, you may be screwed because you can't buy parts for them. Fortunately, that movement that I was working on was a movement that's still being manufactured, and I was able to buy a new part for it. The screw cost me $8 though, so it's better to not lose these, even if it is one you can replace. So we're going to carefully pick this up and drop it in the parts tray. Okay, now I've taken the movement out of the movement holder, and the reason I've done that is in order to separate the balance bridge from the base plate of the movement. You can see that even though the screw is out, it's not falling out. It's still stuck there. There is a little groove that you can see right there, and that is meant for you to stick a little tiny screwdriver in there and pop it open. So that's what we're going to do to try to get the bridge loosened so that we can try to remove the balance bridge from the movement plate. So I've got a little screwdriver here. This one is small enough to fit into that little slot there. Just kind of pry up a little bit. And it is not wanting to move. Something else is holding that on there. Let's see if we can figure out what that is. I have it broken free now. I ended up having to pry it loose in a couple different places. I had to hit it in the slot back here and then on the side as well. And now that it's loose, we need to very carefully lift it out of there so that we don't damage the hairspring. And I'm going to use a pair of tweezers to do that. And I want to grab the balance wheel and the bridge at the same time. And very gently try to lift them out of there. I managed to get the balance wheel and partially out there. I'm having to be very careful here because I don't want to damage the hairspring when I lift it out. But you can see I've got it There we go. Better to let it drop than to have it hang onto the tweezers and distort the hairspring. So we'll just go ahead and pick it back up and put it in the parts tray. And I'm going to try to pick up the balance wheel and the bridge at the same time so that the hairspring doesn't get damaged.